Now that we've looked at the different types of question, let's look at the tone. We don't pay attention to the tone that we use, and the tone is such an important component. So I have 2 children, and this is something that I learned a lot from my daughter, and who helps me unintentionally sometimes maybe, but to understand the importance of the tone. A few times in my life, my daughter came to me and said, Mom, can you say what you've said, but with a different tone? Our tone has such an important aspect of how our messages land. It's the voice that we use. It's the perception. It shapes the perception of the conversation. So in communication, there is what I call the 3 V's in communication. First, the verbal, the words that you use, how you structure your sentences, the emotions that I attach to a word versus what you attach to a word. Second, there's the paraverbal. The paraverbal is the intonation, it's the rhythm, the volume, the pauses that you take. And the third is the nonverbal. I don't touch a lot about the nonverbal. First, it's not my expertise. And second, the nonverbal, your facial expression, your body language, is a reflection of your inner chatter. So when you have a better understanding of your inner chatter, which you will do by default, by following the program, it will automatically influence your nonverbal because it's just a reflection. Your body is speaking what you're thinking. So in reality, we have 3 voices. We think we have 1 voice, but in reality, we have 3 voices. And learning to use the 3 voices will first explain some of the conversation that landed or went sideways, and we'll be able to have more intentionality because each voice actually has a different impact. So the first voice that we have is what we call our nasal voice. This is when we are in our head. It tends to be high-pitched, fast-paced, sometimes tensed. It's associated with insecurity, overanalysis, uncertainty, urgency. The effect of that voice on the other person is that it does create tension. Even if the question is relevant, even if that's not what I meant, that is how it's being landed. So the other person, they feel rushed, they feel judged. This is where we are not having a conversation. This is a head-to-head word exchange. This is when something comes out of your mouth and you say, but that's not what I meant. It's because we've said it with our nasal voice. The second type of voice that we have is our throat voice. This one is more neutral, even tone, has more of a regular tempo, where the head voice tends to be very strong tempo. This is a more regular tempo. It brings the emotion, it brings clarity, openness, presence. The other person feels safe. They have a space to speak. They're no longer in protection mode. And the person feels listened. And they don't feel the pressure to respond. They don't feel like they need to protect themselves. They don't feel like they're being judged. Here we are having a conversation, which in reality is or should, depending on the people, where we want to be most of the time. Now, when we guide clients, when we guide employees, we want to use more of our chest voice. This voice is deeper. It's our Barry White voice that we all have, or our version of. It's slow in rhythm. The emotions that are when we use this voice is calmness, assurance, intentionality. The effect on the other person, it brings them into a deeper reflection because they're calm. It brings them more into introspection. So the person feels that the conversation that we are having now is not just important, it's relevant. It makes sense. All in all, it's a transformative conversation. The results from our 3 voices, they all have a strength. The nasal one activates. It interrupts automation. It's like, whoa, it's enough. That's a nasal voice. So it really gets us out of our head, gets sometimes the conversation out of our head. The throat voice brings in clarity, accessibility. Then we can actually have an exchange. And the chest voice, this is where you want to bring, when we bring wisdom, this is really where the voice that we want to take. Because it's deeper. It's not about change, it's about transformation, it's about alignment. The more important a conversation is, the slower the pace it should have. So understanding that we are navigating these voices, these different voices all the time, depending on our own mindset. Now with greater intentionality, we can decide which one to activate when needed. Because they're all important, they're all relevant. But they don't all relevant at the same time. So understanding that brings us to be able to understand the types of conversations we want to create. Questions allows us to create types of conversations. And when we master, we understand where the person is in their vortex. We understand which voice, because which voice that we're on will create a different type of conversation. That's the magic of it. So there are three types of conversation. We have logical conversation, we have emotional conversation, and we have practical conversations. So every type of question that I use, understanding the right vortex, understanding where emotionally the person is, understanding the voice that is needed from me to create that conversation, then I bring in clarity of the intention that I want to create and what are my tools in terms of questions that I will use. So why questions are questions to create anchors. When I'm here, obviously, when I'm in the right vortex and I'm using my chest voice, it will create an anchor, it will realign. Here, the role of why questions are really to bring meaning, to bring deep motivation, not active motivation, fluffy motivation, deep, lasting motivation. They create emotional conversation. So a type of question that I want to ask with my chest voice in the right vortex is, why is this important? When I use it with my chest voice, it actually lands for the person. I'm slower, so I'm calming the conversation. Then we are going deeper in the conversation. If I'm asking this question, I'm in my head and I'm using my navel voice, it sounds like, why is this important? Or why is this important? Then it's more judgmental. It's the same question, but it won't create the same type of conversation at all. So understanding the types of voice, understanding the vortex allows us to understand the type of conversation we are going to create. So this is why also the verbal, the paraverbal, and nonverbal are important, because it can be the same words, but not the same paraverbal, creates a completely different types of conversation. How questions, they are there to organize structure. Their role is really to bring frameworks, to bring steps, to bring an approach, to bring from ideas to execution. So they create logical and practical conversation, because those conversations are very important. Ideas and execution is better. Those are how question. How are we going to do this? How do you see this happening? These are the next step conversations. Who conversation? We are tribes. We feel safe surrounded by people, and we find our meaning surrounded by people. So who questions, they engage and motivate because of contribution and mattering. So their role is to bring back the people around us, to bring back our human capital that is around us and that will be impacted by us. So they create a mix of emotional, practical, and logical conversation. So an example of who question is, who's involved? Who's going to be involved in this project? Or who's going to be affected by this? If you ask a parent a who question, that is, who's going to be affected by your next step? They will always say their kids. And we will do more for others sometimes than for ourselves. So who questions are very important because they are at the heart of our own mattering. Because if I don't think anybody cares, I won't do it. If I know that, if I know that this will make a difference for the people around me, I will do it. So that's why there are a mix of emotional and logical questions to ask, because it brings in that safety, that mattering, and that meaning that we make a difference, that we are important. Now, when and where questions, they help us with the planning and the implementation. So it's about time, place, logistics. So these are very practical questions. Again, I'm going back into ideas are nice, execution is better. Our role is not just to help our clients' dreams. Our role is to make things happen, make their dreams happen. So an example of when and where question is, when does this need to be done? When is the first step? Where do we need to go? Now we are really bringing our client into action for the realization of their dream. Let me go back for a second. Where questions are very important, because we're not here to motivate. We're here to activate something that they have in them and make it happen. This is why these questions are so important. Now brings us to the what question. Then we even go even more into precision. This is, when are we going to get started? This is what task needs to happen. So ultra practical question. What needs to be done? What's the first step? Often humans won't move. Often, like always, humans won't move because it seems such a big thing. It's like the idea of the project, the dream that they have, seems like it's Mount Everest. First, we want to bring it down to, no, we're just going to go the first base camp. We're going base camp by base camp. And we're going to bring it even smaller than that. It's the first step. What is the first step that will bring us to the first base camp, that will then go to the second base camp, and then we will go and get the big thing? So we know the why, the big thing, what it is. We know all the components of, who, when, who's involved, how are we going to do it. Now we're bringing it practical to help them reach their dreams, their goals, their desires. That's our role. So now it's your turn. I want you to take a day or two and observe, what type of conversation do we need to have? So go through your day, conversations again with friends, families, spouse, the person at the cashier at the grocery store, and ask yourself, observe, what type of conversation do we need to have? Because once we start observing, we get into this meta position. We actually know better how to act with intention instead of react in the moment. So take the time before the next video and really observe in the next day or two, what type of conversation do I need to have here? And you will see it will make you such a better and more intentional leader, the one that you're supposed to. So take the time, and I will see you in the next video.